Matthew 5:8, blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Now recently, I read for the very first time this story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and I must confess that prior to this time, my knowledge of the story basically stemmed from my childhood when I watched the Bugs Bunny version. It's a very short read, only takes a few hours, and I would highly recommend anyone to read it. Now, originally it was written as a horror story because it delves into some pretty dark things. It essentially focuses in upon the duality of human nature, where we have our so-called good side and then our evil side. The story goes that there is this respectable doctor, Dr. Jekyll, who wants to separate these two aspects of his human nature, and so he invents this chemical mixture that when he drinks it, he can live out his dark side in the form of Mr. Hyde, and then when that mixture wears off, he reverts back to being this respectable doctor. But of course, things don't go according to plan. His evil side, Mr. Hyde, quickly becomes the more dominant of the two and begins to completely take over, so that Dr. Jekyll no longer drinks that mixture to turn himself into Mr. Hyde, but rather he has to keep drinking more and more of it in stronger and stronger doses to prevent himself from turning into Mr. Hyde. Now, I don't know whether the author was a Christian or not, but the story clearly is a warning of what happens when we indulge in the dark side. Hi everyone, I'm Mark Leeming, helping you think biblically in a brief amount of time with a brand new video uploaded each and every Thursday. So if you're new here, please do consider subscribing and don't forget to hit the notification bell. Now, if you're a follower of Jesus Christ and you strive to pick up your cross daily and follow him, you strive to live out what the Bible teaches, then I'm sure there have been times when you've looked at your secular neighbors, friends, work colleagues, maybe family members, watching them indulge in the lusts of the flesh. And you've asked yourself, why am I doing this? What's the point? Why not just be like everyone else and have fun and indulge in the dark side of human nature? Several thousand years ago, an Old Testament writer essentially asked the same question. In Psalm 73, the psalmist, he compared the lives of those who strove to do what was right, those who strove to obey God's commands, versus those who didn't. And those who didn't, they seemed to have a pretty good time in doing that. Life seemed to go their way. They seemed to be living the dream, versus those who strove to live godly lives. Well, they suffered for doing so. And from an earthly perspective, at least, things weren't going their way. And so the psalmist, he was tempted to ask the question that we're all tempted to ask at times. Is it worth it? Why not just give in like everyone else? In the end, however, the psalmist understands the ultimate destiny of both parties, that both are on two completely different paths leading in opposite directions. Those who choose not to follow God, naturally they're on a path that leads away from him. And while they may indeed enjoy the sinful pleasures of this life, nevertheless that path leads to destruction. The pure in heart, on the other hand, while their path may be difficult to travel on at times, it nevertheless leads to God and to life. Much in the same way of how Jesus warned in his Sermon on the Mount that broad is the road that leads to destruction, and there are many who travel on it, but narrow is the road that leads to life, and there are few who travel on it. The pure in heart, they understand that life is fleeting, that life is temporal, that we're really nothing but the mist here today and then gone tomorrow. And that's why the pure in heart pursue the things of God. They put their hope and trust in him. And that's why the pure in heart can acknowledge with what the psalmist said in verse 25, "Whom have I in heaven but you? And earth has nothing I desire besides you." Just as Jesus declared in Matthew 5:8, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God." Now, if you're new to this channel and haven't watched the other videos in this series on the Beatitudes, click on the end card over there. And if you'd like to subscribe, click on the icon over there. Now, next week's video, we're going to be looking at blessed are the cheesemakers. I mean, peacemakers. I hope to see you then.